Hi everyone. Hope you all are good. We are here for grade 4 math. You can find all the lessons on aplusstudents.com. You have to log in there using your email address and password as provided by the administrator. Then you have to select math from the subject tab. Scroll down to grade 4 math and then click on view all lessons. There you can find the list of the chapters. We're going to start with the chapter multiplication. So please make sure you have your notebook and pencil so that you can note down the important examples and definitions as well. Here I am on grade 4 math. Chapter we're on right now is multiplication. So let's just start with the lesson that is properties of multiplication. So let's just start with the lesson. Which equation shows the associative property of multiplication? So associative property is when you have on the both sides of the equation we have three numbers, just the order of multiplication, the group is different, right? Grouping the factor is changed, the grouping of the factor is changed. So the equation shows the associative property, just the grouping of the factor is changed. Let's just start with the test questions. Which property of multiplication is shown? 8 times 3 times 4 is equal to 8 times 3 times 4. So you can see just the group of the factors is changed. Here you have to do 8 times 3 first, then you have to multiply with 4. But here you have to do the 3 times 4 first and then you have to multiply by 8. So just the grouping fact of the factors is changed. So that is the associative property because that is associative property. Which equation shows the zero property of multiplication? Which is the correct option? 0 times 6 is 0. Option number 2 is the correct option. Zero property means when you multiply any number with 0, the answer is 0. So that is 0 times 6 is 0. Which property of multiplication is shown? 0 is equal to 6 times 0. So which is the correct option? That is 0 property. Option number 2 is the correct option. Which property of multiplication is shown? 5 times 5 is equal to 5 times 1. That is the identity. Identity means multiplying any number with 1 means the number stays the same. That is the identity property. Which property of multiplication is shown? 2 times 1 times 8 is equal to 2 times 1 times 8. That is the associative property. Option number 2 is the correct option. Associative property it is. Which property of multiplication is shown? Seven equals 7 times 1, which is the correct option. That is identity. Option number 1 is the correct option. Which property of multiplication is shown? 3 times 1 times 9 is equal to 3 times 1 times 9. That is the associative property. Option number 1 is the correct option. Three times 1 times 9 is equal to 3 times 1 times 9. So which is the correct option? The correct option is associative property. Option number 1 is the correct option. Which property of multiplication is shown? 7 times 4 is equal to 4 times 7, which is the correct option. Seven times 4 is equal to 4 times 7. That is the commutative property. Option number 1 is the correct option. Which property of multiplication is shown? 1 times 6 is equal to 6, which is the correct option. That is the identity property. Option number 1 is the correct option. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is distributive property, find the missing factor. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find the missing number. So we have to find the missing number now. The first thing we need to learn here is what is the distributive property. So distributive property of multiplication. It is A times B plus C, and we can write it as A times B plus A times C, right? So just look at this one. This is A times B and A times C. So we can write it as A times B plus C. So that is A times, you have to write B plus C over here, right? B is 3, C is 2. So that is 3 times 3 plus 2 is 5. So we have 5 over here. That is 4 times 5. Let's just start with the test questions. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find the missing number. So 3 times 1 plus 3 times 5, right? So we need to write 3 times A plus B. We already have 3 here and 5 here. So the next number, missing number is 1. Option number 2 is the correct option, that is 1. The correct option is 1. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find the missing number. 3 times 1 plus 3 times 5. So you need to find the missing number, right? You are given A times B plus A times C. So the missing number would be A times B plus C. That means B plus C is missing, right? So 1 plus 5 is the missing number because you already have 3 over here. B plus C, that would be 5 plus 1. So that is 5 plus 1 is 6. So the missing number is 6. Option number 2 is the correct option. The correct option is 6. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find the missing number. 4 times 5 plus 4 times 1 equals 4 times the missing number plus 1. So which number is missing? That is 5 plus 1. The missing number is 5. Option number 2 is the correct option. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find the missing number. 4 times 3 plus 4 times 2 equals 4 times the missing number. So which number is missing? That is 5. Option number 2 is the correct option. 5 times 3 plus 5 times 2 equals the missing number times 5. So which is the missing number? Yes, very good. 5. It is option number 1 is the correct option. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is multiply using the distributive property. Let's just start with the lesson. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find 6 times 12. The hint is we need to write the 12 as 10 plus 2. So we need to do 6 times 12, right? So we need to write 12 as 2 plus 10. So let's just write 2 plus 10. Now apply the distributive property. We have to do 6 times 2. Here it is. And then we have plus. And then we need to do 6 times 10. So that is 6 times 10. 6 times 12 is 12. And 6 times 10 is 60. So 60 plus 12 equals 72. The correct option is 72. Let's just start with the test questions. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find 8 times 7. So we need to we need to use the hint. We need to write 11 as 10 plus 1. So let's just write 11 as 10 plus 1, and now we need to apply the distributive property. We have to do 8 times 10, and plus we have to do 8 times 1. So 8 times 10 is 80, and 8 times 1 is 8. So 80 times 10 is 88. So either you do 11 times 8, or either you do 8 times 10 plus 1. The answer is 88. Option number 1 is the correct option. That is 88. Option 1 is the correct option. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find 6 times 11. So just use the hand, write 11 as 10 plus 1. Now we have to do 6 times 10 and plus 6 times 1. So which is the correct option? So 6 times 10 is 60, and 6 times 1 is 6. So 60 plus 6 is equal to 66. Option number 1 is the correct option. Option number 1 is the correct option, that is 66. Use the distributive property of multiplication. 7 times 12. We need to write down the 12 as 10 plus 2. So let's just write 7 times 10 plus 2. So we have to do 7 times 10 and plus 7 times 2. So 7 times 10 is 70, and 7 times 2 is 14. So 70 plus 14 equals 84. It is option number 2 is the correct option, that is 84. Use the distributive property of multiplication to find 6 times 13. So we need to write 13 as 3 plus 10. So let's just write 13 as 3 plus 10. So we have to do 6 times 3 and plus 6 times 10. So 6 times 3 is 18 and 6 times 10 is 60. So 60 plus 18 equals 78. It is option number 1 is the correct option, that is 78. 6 times 13. So let's just write 13 as 10 plus 3. Now we have to do 6 times 10 plus 6 times 3. 6 times 10 is 60 and 6 plus 3 is 18. So 60 plus 18 is equal to 78. Option number 2 is the correct option. 78 it is. 6 times 14. So we need to write 14 as 10 times 4. So we have to do 6 times 10 and 6 times 4. 6 times 10 is 60 and 6 plus 4 is 24. 84 it is. Option number 2 is the correct option, that is 84. 6 times 14 is, very good, 84 it is. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is, that is estimate multiply by one digit numbers. So we have to estimate the numbers and then we have to multiply. Estimate the product of the nearest 10 and then we have to multiply. So we need to round down the first digit to the nearest 10, right? So 58 is between two tens, right? Between 50 and 60. 50, here we have 50. 58 is close to 60. So it would be rounded to 60 because that is just 2 point away from 60. So it would be 60 times 9. 9 times 6 is 54. So that is 540. Let's just start with the test questions. Basically, rounding off means you need to round to the nearest 10, right? Okay, let's just start with the test questions. Estimate the product, round the second factor to the nearest 10 and then multiply. We have to do 5 times 92, right? So 92 is close to which 10? It is between 90 and 100, right? Here we have 90, here we have 100. 92 is just 1 point away from 90 and it is 8 points away from 100. So it is rounded to 90 because that is close to 90, right? 9 times 5 is 9 times 5 is 45. So that is 450. Option number 1 is the correct option, that is 450. Estimate the product, round the second factor to the nearest 10 and then multiply 9 times 22. So 22 is between two tens, 20 and 30. So that is just 2 points away from 20. So it is rounded to 20. We have to do 20 times 9. So 9 times 2 is 18. That is 180. The correct option is 180. Option number 1 is the correct option. Ninety-two times 3. So we need to round off 92 to 90 because that is close to 90, and then we have to multiply to 3. 9 times 3 is 27. So add a 0, so it would be 270. Option number 2 is the correct option. 8 times 81. So 81 is rounded to which? 10. 81 is rounded to 81 is rounded to 80. 81 is rounded to 80, so we have to do 80 times 8. So which is the correct option? We have to do 8 times 8. So 8 times 8 is very good, 64. So that is 640. Option number 1 is the correct option. 9 times 42. So which is the correct option? Very good. 42 is rounded to 40. So we have to do 40 times 9. 9 times 4 is 36. So then that would be 360. Option number 2 is the correct option. 26 times 4. 26 is rounded to which 10? 26 is rounded to 30. We have to do 30 times 4. 4 times 3 is 20. 4, sorry, 4 times 3 is 12. Option number 1 is the correct option. That is 120. Option 1 is the correct option. 3 times 64, which is the correct option? 64 times 3. So 64 is rounded to 60. So we have to do 60 times 3. So 3 times 6 is 18. So that is 180. That is 180. Option number 2 is the correct option. 7 times 84, which is the correct option? That is 80 times 7. So 7 times 8 is 7 times 8 is 56. So that is 560. Option number 2 is the correct option. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. So we were working on grade 4 math. Chapter we were working on is multiplication. The lessons we have covered today are property, descriptive property, find the missing factor, multiple property, estimate products, multiply by one digit numbers. You can write down the questions in the chat box if you have any. I'm here to answer all your questions and confusions if you have any. No questions?